All right, so we are on day 122 of going through my old journal. And the quote for today says, "It isn't where you came from, it's where you're going that counts." Do you think where people come from matters? And if so, why? Where did you come from that has had an impact on your life in any way? All right, so if you're following along, just think about what you think about the question, and I will read what I wrote. Okay. Isn't where you came from, it's where you're going that counts. Do you think where people come from matters? If so, why? I said yes. I don't know what I'm answering. Maybe I said yes. I'm definitely a nurture over nature person. There are definitely inherent differences caused by genetics. I don't know if this question was even asking about this, but this is what I wrote. I said, but I think a lot of traits will differ just based on how people are raised. With that being said, I think minor things can have a huge impact on how children turn out when they grow up. I've seen it with the kittens I fostered. Bottle-fed kittens turn out different than those raised with their mom, because I have fostered several batches of kittens, and it's just crazy how different they turn out. And I feel like it's got to be some little differences and, you know, kind of what they're exposed to. But yeah, like I had a batch of bottle fed babies. They're about 3 weeks old when I got them. And so I had to feed them with the bottle, raise them myself. And they were so like clingy and so lovey and just so like different than, and I've had like 2 batches, I think 2 or 3, that I had the mama cat with me. So the mom was kind of raising them. And so they're good cats still, but like they're just different than the ones that I bottle fed. I said differences in how I fed them has had an impact on how they react to being fed later on. Oh yeah, like this batch, let's see. Okay, so I've got one set. So I have 4 cats from one that I fostered. I kept all 4 of them. And then let's see. And then I had another batch, and it's so weird because it's even like differences in the mama cats. The first mama cat from the four that I have, she was very like caring, and she seemed concerned about raising the kittens and doing a good job as a mama cat, I guess. The other cat, I just remember whenever I went over to the house and like they had her in a bathroom with the kittens, she just looked like terrified and exhausted and just like, what the heck is going on? Like, I could see if she was a person, she would be like a mother that was just like overwhelmed and just did not want to do this. And so she was kind of skittish, but like prior to having the kittens, she was like an outside cat that was pretty skittish. And but I think she just like was so grateful to have someone helping her raise the kittens that she let us like take her in and take in the kittens. And she just like, I would bring her a plate of food to where she was laying feeding the kittens, and she just looked so exhausted. And then like once the kittens were big enough to start running around, she wanted nothing to do with them. She would like come in and feed them and then take off and just try to get away from them. And these kittens are quite different than the other batch of kittens. And also the way I fed, I don't know why, but like they're just food monsters, because I kept 2 of the kittens and the other 2 I got them fixed and took them back to where they came from, so they're not going to keep reproducing, but they have like someone feeding them outside, so they're outside cats. But I kept 2 of the kittens, and the way they like eat and act compared to the other kittens is just so different. Like they're so aggressive over their food, and I don't know why, because I fed them all like kind of the same. So I don't know, but yeah, anyway, it was just really interesting to me, like raising so many batches of kittens and just seeing as I got better at like figuring out how to raise them and try different things, like how they turned out a little bit differently. So, you know, after that experience with the kittens, I said, because of this, I can only imagine what impact little things have on babies and young children. I think it's super important to make sure kids have stable lives when they're young. In my case, I was very fortunate to have grandparents to take care of me, and that my dad had his business to occupy him and keep him away from us while we were little. And so I've kind of insinuated, you know, my dad was a problem. And just these past few years, I've just realized like how fortunate we were to have my grandparents and have the stability of them kind of taking care of us and watching us, you know, because if they weren't there to do that, like, I don't know what it would have been like. It would have been so much worse. But we did have a stable place with them. Like, they both owned their own businesses, my grandma and grandpa. My grandma worked out of her house. She had a beauty shop. My grandpa he was a mechanic, and he had a garage like on this property. So they were both here all the time. They would wake up early, start their day. They had like a routine. So we did have like some sort of routine with them. And like we always knew that like they were there for us. So like even if we didn't necessarily have that feeling fully with our parents, you know, we always had that with our grandparents. We knew that there was someone who cared about us, someone that would take us in, someone that we could, you know, rely on. And so I think that was probably really important that I had that as a kid. I think if I were around, and I guess I'm going back to talking about my dad. I said, and yeah, my dad was not. See, here's the thing. I've been seeing a lot of people talk about, you know, these deadbeat dads that aren't around and how they need to be more involved in their kids' life. And to some extent, yes. But if they're not good people, I think it's better that they're just not around. So I actually think it would have been worse for us if our dad would have been around more. So I did not mind that he was not around when I was a kid, because when he was around, it was like there was kind of some tension. He wasn't even around that much because we were at our grandparents' house most of the time. But I just remember it's kind of like, oh, dad's home, you know, like me and my sister would just kind of try to stay away and, you know, whatever. So I said, I think if he were around more, my sister and I would have been more damaged. And I said, each day I appreciate my grandparents more and more. And that's definitely true. I think this question there's probably a different response it was looking for with this, but that's where my brain went on that day. But yeah, I do think where you were born, how you were raised, the resources you have access to, it definitely makes a difference in almost everyone's lives. And I don't think, it seems like a lot of people don't realize, and I kind of mentioned this the other day, that like you think that because you're from a certain country or because you're within like this certain group type of people that everybody is like you, everybody thinks the same as you, everybody had the same like, you know, advantages that you had. And so, you know, you see someone that's, I think people are quick to be like, well, these people are just lazy, or these people need to work harder, or, you know, why are these people acting like this? They just need to get it together. And yeah, in some cases there are people who are lazy, but you don't know like what their whole life was like. You don't know like, you know, what advantages did you have over some of them. And like, sometimes I have some people that I have to remind about that. Like, they might be like, oh, well, why don't they just do this? Why don't they just do that? I do this. I did this. And I'm just like, well, yeah, but you also had good parents that raised you to do this and to work and to get up early and to do all these things. And, you know, and to eat well, you know, it's kind of like if you were raised in a way that didn't expose you to these certain things or this certain way of living, then it's a little bit harder, I think, for some people. kind of like I talked about it, I think yesterday or the day before, with the veganism and how it was kind of, there's a lot of vegans that are just like, going vegan is not hard, it's easy, you know, like if you care about the animals then you would be vegan. But it's like, well, no, if you were raised a certain way and you don't know how to cook and you've never been exposed to like these types of foods, it can be hard. And I think it hurts the whole movement to just like write people off and just say, well, it's easy, why aren't they doing it? Well, maybe it was easy for you, maybe your parents cooked for you, maybe your parents taught you how to cook vegetables, or you know, or even if it was hard for you, like maybe you have the money to buy the food, or you have the time to invest in cooking, and some people don't. So I think, yeah, you just, everybody comes from a different background, and I think the background definitely has a big impact on people's lives and how they turn out. So anyway, that's all I have for that day. I'll be back tomorrow with day 123.